Alright, hey everyone, welcome back to Sitting with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is another Collective Comrade. Today we're going to talk about the Los Angeles, what's it called? Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, which is a group, I don't know if they have nonprofit status. It's a collective collaboration project under LA CAN, which we haven't talked about, but we'll get to. And the Stop LAD, the reason I'm thinking about this right now is because I started thinking about surveillance. So back in LA, the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is an initiative that, like I said, is working with LA CAN, the Los Angeles Community Action Network. But the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition does a lot of research-based stuff, presentations in the community, informing people of some of this stuff. They do a lot of research around the different types of technology that the LAPD use, and they inform the people about that. So like there's these thing called stingrays in particular that are like on LAPD vehicles that can pick up like information from your phones and stuff. So that's why a lot of people at protests like warn you not to take your phone with you, or if you do, put on some security on it. One thing in particular that I'm currently thinking about though is the I was just trying to track a package that I bought a while ago, and so I was like thinking about, I was like, oh, I haven't received this yet, and it's coming from China, so that's probably why. But it's been like a month, like legit, so it should have been here by now. Anyway, so I started thinking about, well, if this is a fraud, like if this was like wasn't real. So I started thinking about the chips on our debit cards and on our credit cards and stuff. And for those of you who weren't alive when that became a thing, I don't know what year that happened, but it's another form of tracking. The microchips that were on our debit cards were not always there. Like all technology, none of it has always been there, right? When did debit cards get chips? Chips and salsa? No. The debit card started incorporating the microchips primarily using EuroPay, MasterCard, and Visa standard in the mid-1990s and early 2000s. I remember it. I remember having one that didn't have one for a long time, and I didn't get like a real debit card, my own bank account, till I was in my 20s sometime. So maybe I did. Did I have it? Well, I had a job, but I think I got paper checks. I don't know. I used to be the queen of overdrafts. Anyway, one of the things that the Stop LAPD coalition did while I was still in town was this project called the Data Justice Project, in which we did a lot of work, research around, I'm including myself in this because I did a lot within the mental health field. But there were other people involved too. I wasn't the main organizer of this, but I did do a lot of research around it. So we looked into the way that like social services gets information, specifically in LA, and the way that that's used for policing and surveillance because of the way that the county and the city of Los Angeles revamped all of the services together. So it wasn't until I was there, so this was, 2015 to 2020-ish, that the city and county shifted everything. And I feel like this had to do with technology too, because they were like updating databases and, leaving behind paper trails and starting to put everything on computers and whatnot. But one of the things that they were doing was putting everyone in the system. And so we were wondering how that worked and who gets access to it in regards to HIPAA and other stuff. And I think it's important to think about right now with the whole RFK wanting to create these databases and stuff. And it was very important with this, the Data Justice Project was very important as we were mapping the ways in which the county and city were also extracting information, personal information from people out on the streets. So they did like outreach to get people into housing, but there's no housing to offer. Shelters are not housing, right? And so it was like the county just had these like teams who would go out on the streets, and these are good people for the most part. They think they're doing a good thing, but they're just pushing paper for the county and for the city and for optimum control. So that's why I'm talking to you about all of these grassroots efforts. The Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, Hamid, the main organizer, the man who started this, he and I think Mariella started it too. So these are folks who live in Los Angeles, but their family lineage goes back to the Middle East. Both of them have Pakistani and Palestinian bloodlines. Okay, so I think that's an interesting thing too, is because it's so important to understand how people. I've talked about Hamid before in some of the things that I've talked about, but Hamid is an incredible man. He is so fucking smart, and he's from Pakistan, and the way that he understands how surveillance technology works, I believe, has a lot to do with his time outside of the U.S., right? And that's why it's so important for us to learn from people who are on the ground doing the work, right? Especially for Americans who are just now waking up to what's actually going on, the way that these things always work, or actually work. But I think under this admin, it's going to be a very interesting thing, because he's pulling, I mean, it's not just him. This administration is pulling so many of these services. They've already gathered all of this information. They know who's who, what's what, how much people are getting. And I just, I got some mail today from Access. I'm pretty sure they canceled me. I don't really care. I didn't want Access anyway. But like the ways in which people are going to be affected, the ways in which it already has. So the Data Justice Project was all about, we got a lot of firsthand accounts. Mariella, the other organizer, did a ton of interviews from people on the streets and people within different communities of LA. If you don't know about LA's urban landscape, it's very much, I feel like this is very common for most big cities. They're very segregated, like Chinatown and Little Tokyo. There's different groups of nationalities within the city. Certain places are for different groups of people. It's a very interesting thing. As someone who grew up in the Midwest, I didn't grow up in an urban environment, so it's interesting to me always. But that's the thing, is that she did a lot of interviews with people from different areas, different communities, different ethnicities, nationalities, things like that, and gathered so much information about the parallels in how these systems work, the parallels in how, and that's just one project from a good 10 years ago, right? I don't know what they've been up to. I mean, I know that they're constantly telling folks. I know that Hamid made me familiar with the word algorithm before anyone on social media started understanding algorithms, because of the way that the South Central is policed. And I've learned so much from the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition also about the ways in which statistics are, like when the police file statistics about their outreach and their arrests and whatnot, all of that shit is biased because their presence is constant within, low income Black and brown communities versus Beverly Hills. If you don't know that white people are so fucking weird and like the scum of the earth and the things that they do behind closed doors, versus, right, what folks are doing, people who just want to have community. The reason I'm making this distinction is because it's so incredibly important to know that the white people, think about the Diddy parties. That shit was happening while the police were, trailing around South Central looking for something to fucking make a problem. That's how the statistics are always skewed. That's how funding is always created. But the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, I would say these are really, really smart people, and they do an incredible job making people aware of how the system outside of just policing is policing. And it's very much, I don't know if this was his intention, but I know Foucault is the main theorist I used in my master's work, which was the carceral theory, which talks about how there's the teacher judge, the pastor judge, the social worker judge, how everyone's judging everyone and reporting back to the hierarchy about who's falling in line or who did this or who did that, and they should be criminalized and pathologized and all of that. So the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition does an incredible job of praxis, which is the, application of theory and practice. So there's academics within it. There's a ton of fucking community research projects. But I'm really thinking about the Data Justice Project today, thinking about the ways in which people are going to be impacted by all of these fundings and how that's going to be criminalized further, right? LA is such an easy epicenter to see these things happen if you've never been there. My experience in LA was not like other white folks, because I chose to not do that path. I wanted to be involved in the fight back, and I was. That's the only reason I was actually in LA. And so I would follow them, because whatever they're talking about happening in LA, it's happening at a larger scale. Remember how we talk about how all of these cities and municipalities like to pass things and see, how the public takes it, see what kind of pushback they get, and then, all the other cities and towns and stuff do it, at 2 a.m. when nobody notices and shit like that. So the Stop LAPD it's such a long word. Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is a long-term effort, grassroots effort, again, global effort, to understand policing, to look at the equipment, the software, understand the algorithms of policing, and educating the community about all of it, right? I guess I'll do LA Can next, because Stop LAPD Spying is their handle on Instagram. Like I said, I don't think they have nonprofit status, so if you would like to support the efforts, like Hamid and them, they all make like these incredible info charts and stuff. You can see these on their website. Oh, here's Hamid. They've been doing a lot more social media stuff. I think LA Can has hired social media because they're doing a great job. But the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is outside of, or like inside LA Can, and I will go ahead and talk to you about LA Can next. But yeah, if you want to donate, if you want to get involved, if you want to learn about these things, highly recommend to start with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Again, I have a personal relationship there. The policing within all of the government systems. I mean, you're probably wondering at some points when I share stories why I make the decisions I do to stay as outside of the system as possible. And it's because of the information that I'm aware of. Thanks to grassroots efforts and the people recognizing what's going on and informing people. All right? Have a good one.